Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Matt, and this is Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit, your beacon of freedom and the American way of life. Tune in every Friday for a new episode as we dive into the world of liberty and what makes our country great. Howdy, folks. I hope everybody has had a great week. Eric and Matt here with LLP, and we're back for another podcast, baby.
Oh, yeah. We're excited.
All right.
We're back.
Okay, now this subject here is going to be pretty interesting. We're going to dive into this one. We're going to be talking about the politics of higher education.
That's right.
This may not be necessarily about what you think it is, but maybe we'll provide some really cool perspective. And maybe you can think about this subject in a way you might not have thought about it before. I know many of you are, traveling about. Maybe you're on your way to work. Maybe you're just out and about. Lots of folks listen to podcasts when they're in the vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
I personally, I enjoy audiobooks and I like podcasts. So same type of thing. Like sometimes you're taking a long trip. It's kind of cool to settle in on a podcast. So I hope that if we are a part of your commute or otherwise your daily life, we definitely appreciate you supporting what we do. You can find our podcasts on a bunch of different outlets, anywhere that all of your podcasts can be found in terms of audio. But every Saturday over on Iraq Veteran 8888, we post a video version of this podcast as well. If you'd like to see us a little bit more in the flesh rather than just the audio, we do have the video version as well that drops on the YouTube channel.
That's right.
I would like to take a moment before we get started to thank our friends at RMA Armament. They make some awesome body armor. If you use the code IV8888, you can actually save yourself 10%. They're American produced from end to end, veteran-owned company. We've done a lot of testing on their armor. It's fantastic. It holds up great. It takes a ton of punishment. Check them out, and we definitely appreciate them supporting LLP.
Great group
supporting
of guys.
Our podcast. Okay, so Matt, this subject here can go in a lot of different directions, and we've got a lot of layers of this onion to sort of peel apart. And what in the heck do we mean by the politics of higher education?
Well, and
it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, we were trying to kind of, peel away these layers, going into this subject in this episode. And really what it comes down to is that when we were discussing it, obviously off camera, off the show, the American public, the youth we were talking about just them getting kind of conned and duped into this, mindset that you have to go to college, that you have to get a piece of paper, and that this piece of paper means everything. And if you don't have this piece of paper, then you're not a success in life, or you failed to achieve what others have. And you see it across the board. Some parents like, oh, so-and-so's kid went to this school, so where does it stop? So you have kids that choose to go into the trades, or choose to be entrepreneurs, or choose to do something other than college or university. Okay, well, let's just say you did decide to go to university. Then you still have people that are saying, well, that university is not as good as this university. And then you go to that university and you say, well, that major isn't as good as this major. So at what point does it stop? At what point is this gravy train for the institution stop? Because as you continue this journey, you spend more and more money in the guise that you're going to get it back when you graduate. When you graduate this school, if you're lucky enough to graduate in 4 years, because I know lots of people that were on the 5-year plan or the 6-year plan, you take a break, or you just, you roll over a year, this costs money. And I know, Eric, you're going to get into the actual numbers of it in a little bit, but you're spending an awful lot of money. And when you get out of college, you're still this bright-eyed, green, as you would say, kid. And then you go into the workforce, and you're getting crushed with student loan debt. You can't pay back. You get upset. You get angry. And in this world of instant gratification, it's almost like it was a rite of passage to hit the entry level market. It used to be entry level, and then you kind of work your way up. But with the amount of debt that you're incurring coming out of schools now, I mean, it's unrealistic. It's bad.
It's funny, when you look at, let's just say, the way that college has sort of been sold to people over the years. And we're not going to sit here and say, no one should ever sit and say, I think for starters, that a higher education is not something people should pursue. I mean, if someone should yearn very much for learning and should always try to seek all the knowledge that they possibly can. So when we look at, let's just say, the totality of the way college education is treated in our society, college education is ultimately directly tied to literal wisdom and education and knowledge and things like that. And the more knowledge you have and the better problem-solving skills you have, therefore, the higher amount of money you can earn and everything like that. So it's almost as if there's this situation that presents itself where, oh, well, you'll never have a good job if you don't go to college, right? A lot of kids, especially in the 90s and 80s, that was a huge thing. You know, our grandparents, our parents told us, you will be a loser if you do not attend college and you do not get that degree. You will never have the higher paying job. You will never have success. And we're sold that. It's sold as a package. And maybe somewhere deep down inside, maybe it was true. Maybe they meant it. Maybe in their hearts, it's all they knew to be the truth at the time. And we're not even saying that, you know, as a barrier of entry to a better job, that college isn't still an important undertaking to look at. But now, all right, fast forward all these years later, all of these 90s babies that were taught all of this stuff, and it was driven into us almost militantly.
That's right.
That if you did not seek this out, you will be nothing. You will be on the side of the road, you'll be a bum, and you'll never be anything. And a lot of us believed it, and a lot of us took it hook, line, and sinker, and we took out this debt, and we took out the student loans, and all of this mess, right, in the hopes that that investment in our future would pay in extreme dividends, and that we would, you know, simply just move on with life. And probably the most important lesson that I guess one learns early on is that, you know, that student debt follows you to the grave.
Oh, absolutely.
And there are many people in our society, they're very, very angry that they took out some random degree, and let's just say whether it's liberal arts or whether it's whatever. It could be anything. It could be art. It could be graphic design. It could be philosophy. Whatever you major in. It could be anything. And it's almost like, okay, well, we graduate and what? There's going to be some man at the podium with a job offer and like that it's guaranteed. Now, granted, a lot of colleges have some amazing programs for placing their graduates into jobs, you know, at least an entry-level job. And when they have job fairs, many of the graduates have ample opportunities to go on and use something in their, have a job in the field that their degree is in. And that goes without saying. Of course, that's going to be the case. But colleges and just college education in general is pretty closely associated with class struggle holistically, right? It is the ultimate class struggle because there are many people like, you know, if you come from a rich family, a family with lots and lots of money, of course, they're going to want to send you to the most prestigious school. And of course, on the end user, the student, you as the kid or student that's being sent to this prestigious school, you're expected to walk the line and to make the best grades and to perform and do right by your family. You know, like your family's going to send you to this school, you're expected to adhere to that principle.
Right.
That, oh, there's no way you're going to grow up to be some peon. You're not going to be shoveling crap.
They call them legacy students at that when you have like
your grandfather and your father and I'm not saying that's a wrong thing or any an overall way to you want what's best for your kids. So it's obviously not like a problem if someone wants to go to a high-end school. But when you start to see, let's just say, the political struggles that exist amongst the highly educated, right? When you look at these politicians, all of these politicians, they went to these fancy schools.
Oh, yeah.
Got, and look, that's cool, right? Education, all that sort of thing. But there's this elitism that exists. Oh, well, you peons don't know anything. You're dumb. You didn't go to Yale. So therefore, what could you possibly know about what is right for you or what makes you happy? Well, that's my job to know what makes you happy because you're not intelligent enough to make your own decisions. And whether or not anyone wants to admit it or not, that's what the elites think of you. They don't think you're smart enough to make your own decisions. And maybe somewhere deep down in the philosophically deep-rooted problem that lies, maybe it's a little true to a tiny extent that, there are people that are, okay, if I have a question about astrophysics or I have a question about quantum physics, all right, am I going to pick up a book and read about quantum physics? I love quantum physics. I love having the discussion. Am I the best mathematician? No, I'm not, but I do love quantum physics. And I love, that science. I would just defer a question to someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson and say, hey, what do you think about this? And he's going to, in his endless brilliance, he'll come up with an answer, okay?
Right.
And then also debate the answer with you if you're capable of having the debate. That's fine, right? Like there are people within our society that we assign. We say, you're the Neil deGrasse Tyson of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're the Dale Earnhardt of this situation. I wouldn't put Neil deGrasse Tyson in a race car, and I wouldn't put Dale Earnhardt in, behind a chalkboard.
Yeah.
So like we all have our strengths and weaknesses and the things that we bring to society and the things that we don't. But it's important to acknowledge that those things are not always intrinsically just college or education based, and they're more based on your aptitudes as a person, and you have that from birth. So there's a lot of things that your general aptitude, your general level of intelligence, your general problem-solving skills, your general ability to be cordial, entertaining, courageous, strong, brave, intuitive, all of these things, there's a degree of that comes naturally to every man, woman, and child on this planet. College brings that out or hides it or just simply reveals that it doesn't exist.
Right.
For many, just because one has, a piece of paper saying I'm King Dingling doesn't mean you're King Dingling.
If you have to tell people you're the king,
you're not. But you
king.
Get to tell people and you get the receipt for the education. So let's talk about the costs.
Yeah. So,
want to?
Yeah. So while you pull that up, I can resonate with this personally because I experienced it. When I left the military, I, went to college and, of course we took out student loans and, we kind of lived that life. And I found out rather quickly that it's not for me. I was doing well. It's not like, I failed out, but I was there for about a year and a half. And I was like, I don't enjoy this. I don't like being in school. I never really liked school, but, as part of the Asian, my mom's Korean, so she was like, hey, you left the military, you have time now, go to school, and kind of beat me over the head with it. So I tried it. It wasn't for me. I still had to pay those student loans back, which kind of stung, but I cut it off at the point where I realized that it just wasn't for me, because pursuing this degree and getting this diploma, it's not going to help me. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. I don't need this to progress in life. So I made that decision. Boom, paid my student loans off. Well, what I had on them, paid them off. That's great. So I've lived that life. I experienced it, and I can empathize with it because what I experienced, a lot of young Americans experience that older parent or society telling you, go to school and get it just to get it. But imagine I would have been crushed with debt because I already had to pay back, a little bit of student loans. Imagine fulfilling another 3 years of that. I mean, that's like a setup for failure coming out. And I can totally understand why people are upset about that. Now, are the same students not responsible for paying those back? No, you're still on the hook for it. You signed the papers. That's your responsibility, and it's your job to be responsible and pay those back, no matter how much it stings. Like it's an adult thing to do. You took those loans out. Now you have to pay them back, unless you're going to allow them to repo your degree. Now, if you said, hey, you know what? Take the degree back. Take back the accreditation. I don't have a college degree. Would you still not pay the loans? You can't have the cake and eat it too. You can't keep the accreditation and keep the degree and not pay the student loans. Give it up. It's like, oh, I want this Lamborghini, but I'm not going to pay for it.
I mean, there are economic disparities that exist in every walk of life, right?
Right.
And it is very easy to feel like you have to keep up with the masses. And when you look at academia, the academics and all the folks that are super highly educated, it always seems that in a lot of circles, and this isn't necessarily just intrinsic to every single situation. Of course, there's always going to be outliers in any different direction, in any extreme, in any different area. But generally speaking, a lot of folks that are very high in the world of academia tend to be kind of hard-nosed on a lot of random things and almost bitter. Like there's a bitterness that exists there. I guess like a holier-than-thou kind of attitude, that they're better than you.
Like an elitist mentality.
It's an elitist mentality, and I don't think it's healthy. You know what I mean? So,
well, just to touch on that, and I don't know if it's just a generational thing or not, because what really got me to understand that was my grandfather. My grandfather, before he passed away, he was a special agent with the FBI. He retired from the FBI. He retired from the South Carolina State Patrol. I mean, this guy exuded the American lifestyle. He was, traveling around with the FBI state to state. He had 4 sons, my uncles and my father. Each one was born in a different state because he was getting transferred from post to post within the FBI. And he had a law degree, so he worked with the mafia task force, so he helped take down the mob and stuff like that. Dude, this guy I have so much respect for him. God, man, it's bringing back so many memories right
crazy,
now, dude. But I remember I went to visit him before he passed away, and I asked him. He knew my family. He knew that we were entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And I looked at him. I said, "Grandpa, I'm thinking about going to law school." And he looks at me and goes, "Matt, I reckon there's enough lawyers in the world." And coming from a guy that was highly educated, law degree, for him to say that, he understood. He was like, some people are built for this and some people aren't. And he understood where I came from, what I experienced, what my personality was. And he was just like, that was his way to me of saying, follow your own path. He could have taken that stance of like, no, go to school and get the education and get the degree and check the box. But he's old school, man. He was like, do what you want to do and you'll be successful. And I think that's come to fruition. And I'm just glad I was able to honor that and do that. But that, oh man, that hit me right in the feels just thinking about that. Dude, it hit
me in the feels, man. Hit me in the feels. Now look, you're right about checking the box.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the economic ramifications of checking the box, what that entails. Okay, now we can just kind of preface this by mentioning that student loans follow you to the grave.
Yes, they do.
When you that is one thing that is never forgiven, and without getting too far down this rabbit hole before we get into the cost, it is worth mentioning. I mean, look how upset a lot of these people are that. I mean, and look, as a credit to them, to give them credit where it's due, they went in and they put in their time. They studied. They worked hard. They made good grades. They graduated, right? I could see where arguably, they're angry.
Yes.
If they didn't find the job they wanted, they've got this degree, they got the student debt, and the economic return did not match the return that they put into the education. Right. And they feel duped. And I get it. I stand behind you. I understand how you feel to have such a considerable financial burden you have to take on. And you have this feeling that, well, society didn't take up their end of the bargain and give me this super awesome paying job that I wanted.
Right.
And now, granted, not to say that many that get, certain types of degrees, obviously. I mean, if you take out a solar engineering degree and you learn about solar, well, solar's hot right now.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously, if you want to get into engineering solar arrays, well, you're probably going to be able to find a really good paying job. So it all comes down to measuring, let's just say, what society's needs are, okay, what education requirements are in place for you to fulfill that need, like what education you need to get. So it's logical to say, well, society needs these people to perform this job, and according to all the information, this is about the average salary that someone would make doing that. Well then, okay, I can quickly determine, well, my college is going to cost me this. I've got this amount of sweat and time equity involved in achieving the degree. And then, all right, 4 years from now, once I'm done with my education, is this particular undertaking still going to be a thing? Is it still going to be in demand? I mean, you have to project all that and determine. We're not looking at what the recruiter is telling me right here in the college campus. We got to think about what the conversation is going to look like 4 years from now when I've got the degree and, all right, hurrah, now here we are.
That's right.
So I can understand where there's a lot of people who feel disenfranchised, they feel duped, or they feel like maybe they were given bad guidance or bad information about what the degree they were going to take out was actually going to do for them and accomplish for them financially. I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, right, we have to make a living, and so I can understand for a lot of people how they feel, kind of duped,
Yeah.
because you were sold on that 80s, 90s era, or even later, like even in especially the 2000s, these young kids taking out these crazy degrees and thinking, well, here we go, we're going to go for it, and not realizing how far down the rabbit hole it can harm you financially. So let's talk about the costs. And this just comes like straight from a basic Google search. We're not going to dive like super, super deep into a heck of a lot of data. All right, but this is the average final cost of college as of last year, okay? For a private college, average across the board, you're talking about $39,000 or about $38,000 for a 4-year degree. So that's $40,000 that gets added to your bottom line before you even start life as a young person. And most people, go to college right out of high school.
That's right.
And that's fine. That's cool, right? Hey, your mind is already moldable. You're already impressionable. You're already, all of those neurons in your brain are already firing and kind of set up to learn, right? You're already interconnected in a way in your brain that's set you up to learn. So of course it makes logical sense to go, well, I'm already learning. Let's just keep learning. It can get you there. All right, let's look at Ivy League tuition.
Oh, the upper echelon of universities.
Now here's where things get hinky, right? So let's just say, for instance, that this isn't true necessarily, but let's just say hypothetically that maybe this is just the case. Let's say that college is college is college. Doesn't matter, right? Like if I go to Harvard or Yale, or if I go to the local school, which those are two very different places, of course. But let's just assume that the level of knowledge, right? To go to college is to get knowledge and to learn how to teach yourself. College teaches you how to teach yourself and how to solve problems yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. And maybe how to think about problems from many, many, many different directions. I've never been to college, by the way. I do read a lot of damn books.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I read a lot of damn books. So here's the thing. All right, let's assume that a college education is a college education across the board, and that knowledge and the pursuit of knowledge and the pursuit of wisdom is just the end goal and end result no matter what college you attend. And you look at, all right, now we're talking $38,000 for 4 years worth of tuition for your average private school across the board. Let's look at the Ivy League colleges. Now, this is where all the super rich people send their people. And look, I'm a capitalist, okay? I ain't against somebody being rich, okay? So look, if your parents can afford $58,000 a year in tuition to send you to Yale, $54,000 a year in tuition to send you to Harvard, Princeton is $48,000. That's a steal compared to the other places, isn't it? Let's see, Cornell, $59,000 a year. University of PA, $60,000 a year. Brown University, $61,000 a year. Overall, average Ivy League yearly tuition cost $58,000. Okay, that's well outside of the bounds of any average person, of any middle class family, especially lower class,
well-to-do people.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta have some deep pockets to send your kids to one of those types of college. And then here's the thing: the college isn't going to accept you unless you come from a old family. I mean, so really what it comes down to when you get into the politics of higher education, this isn't about learning anymore. This is about prestige. This is about having your piece of paper say Yale, and when someone sees Yale, they go, well, they're rich. So when you're on the job interview, you're going into, you're up against other candidates for a job. Of course, the people that are hiring are going to go, oh, well, this guy was educated at Yale University.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yale.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? Those are great schools. Like, they're going to teach you. I mean, I'm sure that those folks are extremely, extremely capable.
That's right.
At doing, for that amount of money, god dang, they better, right?
Now, as devil's advocate, you could also say the same thing about the military schools like West Point and, Annapolis, Air Force Academy. While you're trading your tuition with service, you still have to get recommendations from like your senators and your House reps in order to go to those schools. So it's almost like, okay, so the barrier to entry to those prestigious military universities isn't financial, it's who you know. So now it's almost the same concept, but the opposite. It's like, all right, you don't need the money, but you still need the power. You need to know the people to give you the recommendations. And I'll tell you what, me or you, Eric, or any other, guy isn't just going to walk up and get a recommendation from House reps or senators to go to the school when there's a trove of donation or donators that they could rather give that to.
And when you look at like student debt, for instance, some youngster wants to go to Yale or Princeton. Now, granted, you're probably not going to get into those schools unless you're brilliant. So it's not like, okay, just because your parents roll up with a checkbook.
Yep.
Does that mean they're going to let you in the school? Probably, maybe not. Like, you still got to be smart. I mean, so maybe I'm wrong there.
Well,
because the thing is, maybe they're like, we don't care. If your kid comes in here and does a crappy job and can't perform in the academic sense, oh, well, give us the money. We don't give a crap. I doubt that. I think they're probably more picky. I don't want to tell tales out of school, literally, in that regard. The point is, someone who is going to attend a prestigious Ivy League university like this and pay those kind of tuitions, chances are their parents are just going to stroke the check. It's not like they're going to be in some crazy debt that's going to follow them around forever. Now, their parents, of course, may go, all right, kid, I spent all this dang money on your education. What are you going to do with your life? Now, that's on the parents to say,
that's right.
All right, kid, I gave you a chance. You're out of here, right? Whatever the case may be, but at the end of the day, the average person, let's just go back to like those average costs, right? All right. Let's assume that the average person has really great GPA in high school or whatever, because that's where it starts, right? You go college prep in high school or, get your basic general education. And then, like, I graduated high school with a 3.9 GPA. Right, I was a nerd, but I decided that college was not for me. It wasn't the path that I wanted to choose. It wasn't that I didn't recognize the importance of educational pursuits, of academic pursuits, that I didn't understand and value the importance of musical pursuits and artistic pursuits and athletic pursuits and all of the things that the basic level school sort of forces you, whether or not you want to be a part of it or not. You're sort of interjected into that existence, right? Like when let's just look at the baselines of like high school. You're in high school, you are part of a microcosm of society that you are forced to participate in. It is a social experiment that you are subject to. You have to get along with other people. You have to be around people you might not like or disagree with, people that look differently than you or think differently than you, right? People that are smart, people that are dumb, people that are strong, people that are weak. So you are forced to be a part of this microcosm. And that microcosm includes the athletic pursuits and, making friends and the social hierarchy of the lifestyles that we live, right? And localized, right? So when we look at, my situation, like when I left high school, I just didn't really feel that college was something for me. Not to say that I didn't respect and understand and value the sanctity of higher education, but that I just made a conscious and literally weighed decision that it wasn't something that I felt was going to be a part of me moving forward. And quite frankly, a lot of young folks, sometimes they don't know what they want to do when they leave school.
That's right.
Maybe they just want to take a few years, get in the workforce, see what the world is like, and then maybe they'll go to college later or make a decision later in life. So maybe I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life at the time, and that I didn't feel that college for me at the time was a necessary or logical first step that I felt that I had to take right out the gate.
Well, I'm glad you realized that, because you saved yourself a lot of money. And think about this, man. Look at how much the stars had to align for you and me to be sitting here in the same room across from each other. Because if you would have said, "Oh, I'm going to go to college," and you decided to try college, then we wouldn't have wound up in the same unit. We wouldn't be in the same platoon. We probably wouldn't even know each other. We would be two random people on the planet, like not knowing each other, and you probably wouldn't be doing this right now. So it's like all of these things, like people put so much emphasis on you have to go to college and do something and pursue something that you don't want to pursue. And I think that a lot of that stems from, technology has changed.
Good point.
When you think of like the high school dropout in like the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, the technology wasn't there. So if you dropped out of high school, you really didn't have any other choices. You could do like trade work. Trade work is great, but most people didn't go that route. They ended up, burger flippers or, fry guys, janitors. But now with technology, it's crazy. Like coding, like software development, software engineering, programming. These are I'm going to call them trades, because they're technical trades that you don't even need to go to college for. I know programmers and I know, web developers that went straight from high school. They learn this stuff on the side in high school, self-taught. The stuff that you're learning in college for programming or whatever language you're learning, it's obsolete by the time you hit the actual workforce, which is why so many companies don't even care whether you have a college degree when you're in that field. I mean, yeah, I could get it if you're going for like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. Obviously, there's a basic rule of subsets you have to know. But with coding, you can literally learn it on your own, in your room, by yourself. And you can code your own stuff as a litmus test. You can make your own websites as a litmus test. You can make your own programs. You can make your own apps for phones. Like, none of this requires higher education. So I think the new generation, our generation, if, my daughter was like, you know what? I would like her to go to college because I think it's a great experience. I think you learn a lot from being there. You learn the social constructs of society. You learn what is acceptable socially, what is not acceptable socially. It is not socially acceptable to get blackout drunk and pass out by the pool. This is not, it's gauche. It's not socially acceptable.
I didn't have to go to college for that.
But these are the things you learn. Trust me. Now, if she said, you know what, Dad? I tried a year or two of college. It's not for me, but I really like welding. Great. I like welding. I mean, I'm trying to pick that up as a trade myself. I'm really going down that rabbit hole. I think it's really cool. And you look up, just for S&Gs, I looked up like salary ranges for welders. And like aerospace welders, they start at like $100,000. Like, come on, man.
Not to mention underwater welding.
So you have all these different trades that you can apply yourself and get a lot of money doing it. So in fairness, there was a reason for the older generation to, kind of enforce that their kids go to college, because
they wanted them to learn things.
They wanted them
to be holistically more whole people in terms of their level of education.
But nobody
and general knowledge.
Yeah, and nobody at that time could have ever imagined that technology would be at a point now where you have an 18-year-old kid that learned to program get paid $110,000 from Apple because he found some exploit in the camera that just happened. This kid found an exploit for the Mac Pro camera, and they were like, "Oh, thanks for notifying us of this hack. Here's $110,000." So, these are the types of things that you can just do from your bedroom, man.
So let me tell you. So some of the most brilliant people I know, and that I've had the privilege of knowing over the years, are people who are viciously self-starting, read a ton of different books. And we're talking the kind of people that I know personally. I can't mention them by names because some of these folks are pretty private people, and I don't want to call them out because I don't want to do that to anybody. But we're talking multi-millionaires. I know a few people that are very, very, very wealthy, and they're the kind of people that are going to go buy a textbook and read up on a subject, and they're going to buy another textbook and another textbook, and they're just going to spend their time reading and learning and revolving. Mm-hmm. But they know what that evolution is and what it costs and what the real cost is. The real cost is your time, and you must apply yourself to the knowledge. You must give yourself to the knowledge. You have to apply the effort. The most self-starting people, the most wealthy people out there, the ones that get up at 5 o'clock every morning and work their butts off, and they've already read and worked out and done everything before the average person even thinks about rolling out of bed. And it's that hunger. You have to have the hunger to get out there and make something of yourself. And the most wealthy people I know are the ones that refuse to wait for someone to hand them a chance on a silver platter. They make their own chance.
That's right.
And the sooner that we as a society, we have to preach to people and try to get them to understand that nothing is free. No one will give you anything on a silver platter. No one should be expected to just give something away to you for free. Knowledge isn't free, right? So, you can read books, right? I mean, so the way I sort of approached it, and I'm not suggesting that this is the correct way for everyone to go about it or whatever, but, imagine here it is, the 90s, right? Early 2000s. Yeah, early 2000s for me. And, didn't want to go to college, but I'm like, all right, well, what are they teaching in college? This curriculum I'm looking at, what's the curriculum? So, I called up the college and said, well, what textbooks do I need for this course here? Oh, well, yeah, you need this textbook. And you just go to a used bookstore and buy a, $39 textbook. Mm-hmm. And for $40, I've got the textbook. And I could just read the textbook. Now, granted, obviously having a teacher explain things and you can ask questions, that's helpful, of course. But that's where it starts, right? Like, to achieve that knowledge, I mean, books exist. You can, buy a book and read a book. I mean, so, sure, I may not be the best mathematician in the world, but I do enjoy quantum physics, and I love, all of the nerdiness and all of the wonder and uncertainty that comes along with that knowledge base. And had I not just had the desire to say, you know what, I still have the desire to know things and to learn and to ask hard questions that even myself might spend years trying to answer, but that's all right. But if you don't ask the questions, if you don't yearn for the knowledge, what is a piece of paper with your name on it with some prestigious school on it? What does that matter really at the end of the day if your hunger for knowledge does not go past the learning institution? Once you've graduated, you still are a student in life, because in life we want to pursue knowledge. That should be everyone's goal, is to pursue knowledge, right? So if you actually aren't a student your whole life, what do you get the piece of paper and then go, here we go. All right, well, where's my job?
Yeah.
That's not reality. Reality determines or should dictate that we always have trivial pursuits, or the pursuits that we take on in terms of our quest for knowledge. The quest for knowledge never ends.
Yep. Now look at what you're getting for, let's just say you graduate an Ivy League school and you get, the hopes is that you land a job coming out of an Ivy League school at 6 figures, which isn't uncommon. It happens all the time. But to get that 6-figure job, you're in a 6-figure city. So you're working and you're grinding 6 figures in a very built-up area,
and you're paying your student debt,
your student loans. So you might be making $120,000 to $140,000 a year. But if you're in New York City, that's like making $30,000 to $40,000 a year with all of the costs associated with it, and depending on your lifestyle.
I hope that people didn't think I was getting too like far down the rabbit hole there.
No.
But I mean, that's the way I look at life and education and knowledge. Like, you can seek knowledge, and I think it makes someone more truly objective when you have the ability to teach yourself how to learn. And another, real quick before you move on, another one of my really close friends who also happens to be very, very well off, he's done very well for himself in his life. He told me, look, Eric, the thing about college is that what college teaches you is how to learn, how to teach yourself. It teaches you how to solve problems and how to teach yourself things, which really by definition is nothing more than forcing your hand in a way to sort of obtain and process knowledge, and then use a very distinctive process of elimination and logic to determine the answer you seek. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? Now, as the problems become more complex, Matt, obviously the level of knowledge you need to solve those problems is higher. Now, obviously that's where, I mean, like, if we're going to put a rocket ship on Mars, I mean, there's going to be some pretty brilliant brains involved in doing that. So I think it doesn't say that that someone is going to pick up a textbook and learn rocketry without going to a school and getting some education from someone who's been in the rocket industry for 30 years and went on to teach at an Ivy League school. So I mean, there's obviously certain areas that whether you like it or not, you're gonna have to obtain that knowledge through one of those types.
If somebody said, "Hey, I'm a doctor, but I'm self-taught," I'm like,
yeah, you'd kind of
let's not do that.
You'd kind of be like, "Are you?"
Yeah,
I mean,
are you though?
There are certain things that it's like, yeah, I mean, you got to go to college in order to do certain jobs.
I'm a self-taught dentist. No, let's not go there.
Dentist, I could almost even sort of like maybe give a pass. All right,
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Depending on
you can mess some stuff up in there.
I know. The whole thing about your teeth and your mouth and all that's crazy. There's a lot going on in there, and there's even like you can die from infections in your mouth.
Oh yeah,
it's like really bad. It can go to the rest of your system really, really quickly, from what I understand. And that's frightening.
So Eric talked about the price of tuition for these universities, and the prices that he gave for tuition is just the tuition. That excludes the actual living expenses, because you got to have some place to sleep, you got to have a car, you got to have food, you got to have books. Books cost a ton, so all of that wasn't even included. So you're going to spend in excess of probably $70,000 a year for education, which if you got
at Ivy League
school,
just to clarify.
you got it. Now, here's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about is the actual endowments for these Ivy League schools. So if you guys don't know, the endowment for these universities is like is affectionately known as the coffers. It is the reserves. This is cash on hand deposited in the bank accounts that these schools have in case of emergencies to survive off of. This is their slush funds.
A little running money, huh?
Oh yeah,
just a little indiscriminatory cash that just fell out of the sofa cushions.
So if they need something like aircraft carrier or something, because these numbers,
maybe to have a private military,
perhaps. Yes. So let's go down the list here of the Ivy League schools, and I think this is going to blow you guys away. So Harvard, $41 billion. $380 million. These are all numbers from the 2020 fiscal year. So they're accurate, up-to-date numbers. So the university has $41 billion. So I'm going to round it up. $42 billion in the coffers. They could literally stop taking tuition payments for a very long time. And they would be perfectly fine with giving these. So that brings up another question is the price of the education. Does it warrant it? If you're sitting on $42 billion, why do they need to charge upwards of $70,000 a year per student? So Yale University is $31 billion, $108 million. Stanford, 28 billion. So these are all with a B, guys. Bravo, billion.
I haven't answered your question, but I'll wait till you're finished.
MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, 18 billion. University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, very, very well-known business school there, 14 billion. Texas A&M, 12 billion. University of Notre Dame, 12 billion. University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, 12 billion.
Wow.
Columbia, 11 billion. Guys, these schools have like an endowment that is larger than the GDP of a lot of countries in the world.
Wow.
And there's nothing wrong with having an endowment, but to put the expectation that you have to pay $70,000 a year to attend these universities, you're willingly giving your money to them, and they're taking that money, putting it into the coffers, back into the coffers of the school. I mean, honestly, with that amount of money, the interest alone that is generating is ridiculous. I mean, that's millions of dollars of interest off of $1 billion of endowments. So,
That's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy.
Allow me, if I can, to maybe attempt to answer your question. All right. So the initial question on the top end of that was, why do they charge so much? Right. Well, I think I know why. And maybe this is kind of a weird reason, but bear with me. All right. This thought experiment. Okay. Because the clientele that does business with people like those kind of schools, right? So a well-to-do family, or someone who's obviously got a pile of money. I mean, all right, let's think about this. Let's break this down real quick, okay? So if I borrow $1 million from a bank or something like that, my mortgage on that is probably going to be somewhere in the $7,000 mark, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe higher, maybe lower, depending on interest rates and all that sort of mess.
And your personal qualifications.
And your personal qualification, everything. Not to say I've ever borrowed $1 million, but that's about what the mortgage would be, about $7,000. All right. Let's just say that after your books and all the fees, let's just say the overall tuition and all of your random fees comes out to, let's just come up with a round number like $75,000. Okay. It might be more or less than that, but let's just use that as a round number. All right, we divide that $75,000 by 12 months. It means that the family's burden that is sending their kid to that Ivy League school, they're going to pay $6,250 monthly on average. Not to say you pay it on a monthly basis, but I'm just saying what that wrecks down to if you just spread it out monthly over the course of 12 months. I mean, because a lot of people live month to month, right? They have different business dealings that might kind of operate on a 30, 60, 90-day net basis, something like that, right? So let's just, for argument's sake, just divide it into 12 equal months, because that's just how our calendar's set up or whatever, all right? So when you look at that amount of money, a family that can spend that kind of money, right, monthly, let's just say can spend that kind of money on their kid, why wouldn't the school charge what they charge? Because these parents obviously can afford it and they're paying it, right? So I think that there's almost let's just say a little bit of what would we call it? It's like reverse psychology. So there's an association with the price, right, that makes people think, well, this obviously it's the best education.
It's a premium experience.
Because it costs so much. But you know what I mean?
No, it's absolutely true.
People have this idea in their head that if it's expensive, it's good. Now, in the case of, let's say, higher education, obviously those schools have been around a very long time and they're very prestigious, and some of the most brilliant minds of our country come out of those schools. So it's not to say that at face value that you're not buying something for that money. But I can understand why they charge so much. Because if they don't charge a lot, all right, Mr. Fancy Pants rich guy who wants to send their kid to the fanciest school, it's almost like they have to have the race to the top. They have to charge more than any other school. Because if they don't, someone's going to go, well, how good could it be for $40,000 a year when this school is $65,000 a year? And we can't send Winston to the $40,000 a year school. We have to send Winston to the $65,000 a year school. Because never mind the thought process of why one school would be cheaper than the other, but with the mental screwery that only the most expensive school could possibly be the higher the price, it must be better.
Well, yeah, and and that's absolutely,
and maybe that is the case.
That rings true because my good buddy Mike, you've met Mike. He's my retained counsel. He graduated from Georgia Tech, good school.
Smart guy.
Yeah, he went to Emory Law. Great law program there. And then we and him were getting to talking. He was like, yeah, even within the law schools, there's like that same mentality. It was like, oh, you went to such and such law school, but I went to this law school. And then this guy's like, well, you didn't graduate from Harvard Law. So it's like this whole this pyramid of tier levels for law degrees. And you would think that law is law, right? I mean, it's like you're learning the law, but apparently there's different tier levels for that. And
also think about how well connected a lot of those professors probably are at those higher end schools.
100%.
I mean, they know all of the hierarchy of people that are in the legal world. They know all the judges. They know the congressmen. So it's all a giant club at the end of the day. Really, that's what it comes down to.
You're trying to get into the club.
Of course.
So
that's all it is a club.
I'm glad you brought up the
I made my own dang club. Okay?
That's right. So I'm glad you brought up the total cost because, I mean, think about it. You can go to, and even if you're going to go to, let's just say it doesn't even have to be Ivy League. It can be like Georgia Tech or let's just say like Dartmouth or something. Like they're not your typical Ivy League, but really good schools.
Sure.
You're going to drop $100K for the entire thing. Like UGA is a great school. It's around 40 to 50,000. And then you start getting into like the Georgia Techs and the Emorys and stuff like that. And then you're going to be anywhere between 70 to 100K. So why is it that you can go and get a $100,000 student loan, right? And all you get is a piece of paper. The banks can't come after you and get anything. If you default on that, the banks get nothing, right? But as an entrepreneur, that guy or that person can't go to the bank and get a $100,000 business loan to purchase tangible assets that they can actually get back from you and get their money back. Because let's just say you gave Matt $100,000 for a business. To run that business, you'd probably need about $70,000 worth of equipment. And then the rest is operating costs. The bank, if that doesn't work out, the bank's going to go, well, hey, Mr. Matt, we're going to take those assets back and we can at least recoup the cost of that. They're getting something back out of it. But why? Why is it that they don't give that same opportunity to younger people? Because I'll tell you why. It's not guaranteed by the government.
It's not profitable for them. That's why.
Right. And you can file bankruptcy and get it all. But they still get their stuff back. Like you can get your tangible assets back. So it's like this whole racket of if you gave the same opportunities for small business and entrepreneurship to younger people coming out, they would flourish. I know it's risky, but if there was a certain way that they could have some oversight. Maybe if they said, hey, we're going to do this with you, but we want to help you. So we're going to, we want to make sure you're using this money to buy stuff that we can recoup. So if you need a piece of equipment, they know what that equipment is worth. They know that they can get the money back out of it if they have to repo it. And, I think that might be a good way to do it. It might be a little bit harder to roll out, but it would produce so many more options for young Americans than what they have now. Because right now the options are go to school and get a degree and get crushed with debt, or go work an hourly job and try to, sacrifice for 3 or 4 years till you save up enough money and to start your own business. Well, and that's a shame.
I want to share just a very quick little thing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think it kind of weighs in on this conversation a bit, and I think it's worth mentioning. Okay, so like my stepson Jacob, a couple of years ago, he had gotten out of high school. He loves running heavy equipment more than anything in the world. That kid, you can put him on anything. Doesn't matter if it's a bulldozer, if it's an excavator, if it's got wheels or tracks and does things, he knows how to use it, and he's just really good at it. He has a very natural aptitude for operating heavy equipment. And he got out of high school and went to work for a major construction company and running their heavy equipment for him. And of course, in his mind, he's starting to think, well, I can do this. Like, why do I need to work for someone else? I can do this myself, and I can make all the profit. Yeah, I take all the risk, but I can make all the money. And by working and getting a little bit of life experience for a few years working for this other company, he starts to see, all right, well, this machine breaks in this way. The fuel costs this. This is how to get the fuel here. I mean, so that all these logistical things you start to learn with a little bit of life experience. Hey, well, this isn't so hard. I can do this, right? Well, we co-signed on a excavator and a bulldozer for him. Now, he borrowed $130,000. Okay, but the kid is doing well. He's got his own clearing and grading company, and he's doing a lot of clearing. And a few years in, he was like, wow, I'm taking on bigger jobs. I need a bigger machine. So he traded in the smaller machine, got a bigger machine. Now he can make more money. So, but he's learning and understanding when it comes to running your own business, the pitfalls, right? The benefits and everything that comes along with it. And he's doing quite well for himself. And yeah, give him 5 or 6 years, 10 years of hard work, he'll be a millionaire.
That's right.
And hopefully he'll remember we co-signed on the loan. But he hasn't missed a single payment. He's making all his payments on his machines. He's making money. He's employing 2 people.
That's right.
He's making money. I mean, what more could you ask for? But it started with one essential piece of the puzzle: aptitude. Aptitude, skill, passion, and the ability to pursue that in the means of your own self-interest.
Yeah.
And that he did. And he continues to. And I think he's going to do well with it.
And it also takes the trust and belief of your support system to believe in him enough to do that, because there are some people that they were like, oh no, go to college. What if you were the type of, parents that said, no, I want you to go to college. I know Jacob, that's probably not a environment that he would enjoy, but some parents would, say, hey, you have to go, otherwise you're out of the will. It's just one of those checking the box things.
Okay, I would not take some Ivy League college student and put him in a giant excavator and tell him to go run an excavator. But I wouldn't put Jacob in an Ivy League school and him be up there like, algebra. Yeah. So we all have different aptitudes. And college may not be a universal thing that is going to work for every form of aptitude. Some people are more technical, some people more hands-on, and some people just already have a natural tendency and aptitude to do a certain type of task. And it's okay to identify that and say, you know what, this is what I want to do. But at the end of the day, we all have to make our own path in life. Sometimes that means we have to make our own mistakes. If me not getting a college education is a mistake, well, god dang, I'm 38 years old. Am I going to figure it out in the next 10 years, 20 years?
Right.
After all this time goes by, one day am I going to be digging ditches? My grandparents told me if I didn't get a college education, I'd be digging ditches. Well, here I am, 38 years old. I'm definitely not digging ditches. Did I get lucky? Did the stars align for me? Were they wrong? Was I wrong? Have I yet to just dig ditches yet? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But I don't know. Kids have to ultimately make their own mistakes, if it ends up being a mistake. They have to own it.
Yeah, and like I said, it just comes down to your support system. Like my grandfather took the opposite approach of yours. He like I said, was like, hey, just follow your own course and do what you want to do. And it proved to be one of the best decisions in my life. And I enjoy it. I think one of the big things is you just have to get rid of the cultural elitism around it, because there is this type of snobbery when I meet some people, not everybody. Some people are like, oh, when I first meet somebody and I'm getting to know you, I don't care what university or college you went to, and why does it matter? I never bring up what you do. Like when I'm trying to get to know somebody, I never ask, what do you do for a living? There's people that I've met 25 or 30 times We have great conversations. I don't know what they do for a living because I don't care. That's not my agenda. My agenda is not to figure out what you do for a living so then I can figure out how much money you make. I could care less. I don't care what university or school you went to. All I care about is that you're a cool person. And if we get along and if we talk, and if it comes out in normal conversation on what you do or what I do for a living, then great. But if nobody brings it up, I could care less.
I've met a lot of very highly educated people that are actually like not very smart at all. They're actually like kind of not all, I mean, look, like,
no common sense, but they're book smart.
Oh yeah. Well, not even that. Like, I mean, it's just kind of random. Like,
yeah, I get it.
I've met some that it's like, all right,
you made it through life like that, huh?
I mean, yeah, but hey, whatever it takes, I guess.
Yeah. So that's just kind of my take. And, I think that there is a politics to, higher education. It is a economic system that, and we've already shown that with the endowments that these universities have, they don't have to charge as much as they charge. They charge that much because it is a brand. It is a, it's a branded education. And I would just encourage if you're a parent of a young child, let them decide. I mean, sure, I'm a parent as well. I want my child, deep down, I want them to pursue that, but I'm not going to hold their feet to the fire and give them an ultimatum. If they decide, because, look how I turned out. I tried it. I didn't like it. I can't be a hypocrite. I can't say that to my child, hey, I was successful without finishing university, and you're not going to be successful, because then that would make me a hypocrite.
I would. There is one book. It may not necessarily even be like related to the subject matter at hand, but something that just kind of popped in my head. Thomas Sowell's Economic Facts and Fallacies. That's a really great book. And look, a lot of Thomas Sowell's teachings are very, very, very important, and they're very instrumental to the person that I've become. I've followed his work for a long time, and I really think highly of his level of intellect and his ability to objectively look at issues. Also, what I look at is the way that academics teach or treat Sowell. I mean, I observe people's actions and behaviors, and I gather my process of how I think about a given solution or problem or a group of, let's just say, internal strife, whether it's these two people disagree with each other, these two groups disagree with each other. I look at how they treat the people within those communities and how the academics treat each other, and then I look at who in the realm of academia, how they're being treated by their fellow academics. And that's how I sort of judge who I need to be following, who I don't. Yep. So the way that they treat Sowell and the way they have treated him over the years is quite cruel. So that tells you that's the person you need to be following.
Yeah, he's doing something right.
He's doing something right. Absolutely. Yep. So big fan. And that's a great book. Economic Facts and Fallacies, Thomas Sowell.
Yep. Great.
Wow, imagine how this conversation would go with him. Boy, he'd be dropping some knowledge bombs on us. But look, there's a bunch of great videos on YouTube, and I don't know about on the podcast realm, maybe not so much, but I know there's a ton of great interviews that he has given over the years. They're on YouTube, and it is thought-provoking, and I would strongly recommend it. And look, all of these scientific forums that get held, right, where they have these big, long roundtable discussions with really brilliant people, that stuff's on the internet. You can just go and watch it. You don't have to be in the crowd paying at the university to be there. You can just go watch it for free. It's there. Those discussions are there.
Yeah, everything is available online
it's
now.
It's available.
Yep.
That's what gets me with all of this stuff. So your ability to obtain knowledge is only limited by your thirst for it and your ability to go and get it. It's right there. The window of the world's right here.
That's right.
And that's what gets me so much about it. So anyway, I hope you all have a great week. We really appreciate you tuning into this week's of LLP. I know we went down a very different rabbit hole than what we normally do. If you're tuning in here on YouTube, thank you very much for watching today's video. We really appreciate it. Also, make sure you're leaving us a really nice review on all of the podcast forums.
5 stars.
5 stars, please. That will get us closer to the top if you enjoyed today. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anyone. Have a good one. Also, make sure you go over to Ballistic Inc. and pick yourself up a snazzy new t-shirt. Those funds go back into supporting the podcast. And remember, use the code IV8888 to get yourself 10% off over at RMA if you decide to get yourself some armor. So anything else before we head out?
The great conversation, man. I loved it.
All right. Well, we'll see y'all next week. Thank you very much. Many more on the way. Have a good one. See you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Life, Liberty, and Pursuit. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. You can support us over on Ballistic Inc. by picking yourself up some merch. And remember, guys, danger is freedom. Have a good one.